You want to save your money? You don't want to go get a steak on a Wednesday night? Do you, bro? But I'm getting the steak and the mushrooms, you know? No, man, it ain't the Gucci slippers. It ain't the Prada bag. It's when Cassian calls you and tells you he got his second crib. That's the biggest flex out there.
Most people in our generation do is they focus on the here and now. All right, I was told I need to get a credit card so that I can build my credit. Done. I was told I need to go to college because I need to have an education in order to secure a good job. Done. I've secured the good job. All right, now I've got that going. Now what?
Finance for the everyday millennial. Hard charging solutions. We provide an accelerant in the journey towards financial independence.
Welcome to Cash with Cash in the Financial Forum for Young Professionals. Today we're going to be talking about, you guessed it, finance with my friend Alireza Behbahani. If you've ever wondered what it's like in the day of a civil engineer, you're about to find out. After graduating from the University of California, Irvine with his Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering in 2016, he decided to begin working for the state of California as a civil engineer. The thoughts, comments, and opinions that Mr. Behbahani is about to express do not reflect the opinions of the state of California and are the sole responsibility of Alireza. Also, nothing discussed today should be taken as personalized investment advice. All right, now that we've got all that out of the way, I'd like to start with my first question. How you doing today, man?
Man, I'm doing great. I woke up this morning, the sun was shining, hit the gym, got ready for this interview, get to see an old friend. I'm ready to go.
Hey man, I love the energy, especially since juxtaposed to how I got up and there was a blizzard outside here in Germany. Like that's awesome. All right, cool.
All
Yeah,
right, let's get it.
let's get it. So, help someone who's thinking about becoming a civil engineer understand what it's like in the day to day.
I got you. My day to days working with Caltrans as a transportation engineer in the construction division is waking up in the mornings and making sure the work that was done the night before, there were no problems that had arose. There's no issues between the state and the contractor who's building, and just going out and making sure everything's safe. So my role within Caltrans is a construction safety coordinator. So as a safety coordinator, my eyes and the lenses that I look through are different than a civil engineer who's a resident engineer who's following through with the contract of the plans. I do quality assurance, making sure that all the safety devices are installed properly. To make sure the employees are wearing their safety gears, no one's putting their life at risk for any construction activities, and then also making sure the safety devices are out there for the public. You know, a lot of times you can see like a retaining wall or a concrete barrier or something like that on a
Mhm.
bridge, and then you see those yellow barrels, and that's for enhanced protection. We
Mhm.
don't want anybody to hit the wall. We want them to hit the barrels first, you know?
So, as a safety coordinator, did
Correct.
you have the opportunity to select whether you wanted to be that safety coordinator or the something else? Or do you start out here and then you move on, or how does that work?
On December 17th, 2017, it was
Mhm.
my first day working with Caltrans, and I started in the design division
Okay.
because the way the organization is set up is you have planning, you have design, you have construction, and you have maintenance. All perform different roles, but they all need to work together in order to give the best product to the public. So when I started out of college, I went straight to design because that's what we did most in college. You'd be in a class, they'd pair you up and then say, okay, do this with this amount of time, with this budget, give us the project plans. So going into the workforce, I thought, hey, what better than doing what I was doing in college? You know, it
Mhm.
directly translates to what I've learned. I started out in traffic design, and what traffic design does is they list out like the striping that you have to put down on the freeways. They list out the signage, like what signs are needed to be put up and things like that. And the benefit of working with Caltrans specifically is they have something called a rotation program
Mhm.
where every new engineer has to do 2 years in two different divisions.
Okay.
So I started out in design, I did my 1 year, and then they sent me over to the construction division.
Got
And then this was about 2018. So I would report to the construction office and I would be the eyes on the field. So the way projects work for Caltrans is we have an in-house design team. We come up with the design plans. Then we put those plans out for bid. But once the projects are out on bid, anyone could bid on the contract. So the state picks the lowest bid, and then the project goes into construction. Once the project is in construction, the actual labor is on the contractor that bid on the plans. But to make sure they're doing what's on the plans, a Caltrans representative is on site while they're working. So that's what I was doing in my year in construction. And most construction is done at night, not to inconvenience the public in any way. A lot of the work was a graveyard shift, meeting up with the contractor, going through our daily activities, and overseeing, doing quality control, quality assurance on the product that the contractor was giving us. After that 1 year was over, I went over to the operations division. And operations, what we do there is they monitor the roadways. They collect traffic data. They collect accident data. And all of this data is the derivative of why we need a project in the first place. So after doing a year there, they offered me to go back to design. And I didn't want to go back to design. So I took it into my own hands and applied internally to a different county. So I started in San Bernardino County. 3 years later, I applied to Orange County because they had a position open in construction. And that's what I seem to enjoy the most. I like being out in the field rather than being behind a computer desk, you know?
Yeah.
So I ended up taking that position, and now it's been a year and a half. I'm out in Orange County doing the safety construction coordinator role. At some points within civil engineering, you have to realize that you can't sit in one place forever.
Yeah.
So what's next? I don't know, but there's going to be a next.
That's awesome, man. I have several questions that I've written down here, but I do want to jump into the personal finance questions here. First one is going to be, what has your personal financial education looked like?
Whoa, personal financial education. So formally, absolutely nothing. Informally, through high school, I had no idea about personal finance. The only thing I knew was I had to open up a credit card when I turned, like 16. That was the only goal I had. And once I got into college, the whole mindset and goal was to graduate and get a job. So I never thought beyond what happens the day after I get the job.
Yeah.
So I really never thought about it. And to be honest, I had a friend in college, Ricky, and he was the only one that would ever bring to my attention a need for a retirement plan, a savings, putting money away. And honestly, I would blow him off. So I was blown. I blew all the money I had in college, just being in the experience, you know. And once I graduated from college, it really wasn't on top of my mind at all. I was basically like, I would say an old school boomer, where I'll just spend what I have and maybe put 10% away, you know, for the future, for something bigger. But that's it. Like every $100, $90 got spent, $10 got put away. That's all I knew about personal finance.
You know, being that, you know, we went to high school together, I can attest to the fact that you were blowing money, man. I was like, man, he's always spending money. Like, what the heck? I'm not saying I was thinking about retirement. Definitely not. I was definitely thinking about investments because, you know, I was hanging out with Andrew, Future Investors of America. We were doing stuff.
Definitely.
The whole time I was never thinking, why is he not investing it? I was probably just giving you the benefit of the doubt that you were doing both. But yeah. What most people in our generation do is what you did. They focus on the here and now. All right, I was told I need to get a credit card so that I can build my credit. Done. I was told I need to go to college because I need to have an education in order to secure a good job. Done. I've secured the good job. All right, now I've got that going. Now what? And the whole point of this show is to help that student who's on their way to college, probably already in college, thinking about what life looks like after college financially, to kind of learn from us, right? I really appreciate you for sharing that right there. And
Oh,
I
no worries.
I want to ask you what Ricky told you that stuck with you and drove you
Mhm.
to start investing or thinking about retirement, but what was it that you took from him and actually started to implement?
But what he said that really resonated with me was one day he came back late from work. He would always stop by my crib, hang out. And no matter how tired he was one of those guys that always wanted to see the homies.
Yep.
So one day he just sees me. I think I might have DoorDashed like $70 worth of sushi or some bullshit like that. And then he's like, bro, like you should be investing this money because he asked me this question. He's like, is time money? And I thought about it for a second and I'm like, yeah, time is money, That's the saying.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, if you open up an investment account today, you don't need to put in money every year because someone else is putting in time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like you putting in money. So that's what got the brain going. So because I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, what's $50 a month, $100 a month going to do for me as a sophomore in college in a IRA or a 401k or something like that. But he's like, it's not the $50 that matters. It's the 4 years in college that get compounded. And then you look back at this in 40 years and see how much money that made you.
Dang, that is some knowledge right there. And kudos to you for thinking about it through that lens, because most people really aren't able to engage in delayed gratification. Most
Mm-hmm.
people would not have been convinced by the
Mm-hmm.
time argument, but like truer words have never been said. It's a little bit of your money, but it's someone else's time. And that time, is really going to allow you to reap the rewards when you're ready to start to take distributions from your contributions. So,
Exactly. And there was actually a second instance where going from a group of people at UC Irvine to a group of people at Stanford, the demographics and social statuses and all that are way different. So from the people that I hung out with at Stanford, they would tell me about actual investment and not just like retirement. And their tip to me was the investing in the S&P 500. So they were telling me every quarter, if you put in a certain amount of money, by the time you need to take that money out, the growth is going to be insane. They say just look at the S&P 500 graph, go back 30 years, just it's a straight shot up.
mhm.
And if the US economy doesn't keep growing, then we have bigger problems than the money you lost in the S&P 500. It's a sure
Exactly.
bet on your own country kind of thing.
I love it because it's true. I mean, the
Yeah.
S&P 500 has an excellent track record. There's no need to become, a day trader. It's like, oh, did you see Apple move 5%? Oh, did you see
Mhm.
Tesla's down 70%? No, I didn't because I'm busy living my life. What I
Exactly.
understand is that the overall US economy is going to be better in 20 years than it is today. I'm just going to invest in the representative model, S&P 500, of the entire US economy.
And that's what changed my opinion about stocks. I always thought about stocks as like a get rich scheme. Whereas investment into the stock market shouldn't be looked at the value of today. You should invest in there and then look back in 30 years. It doesn't matter what it is today.
And
Yeah,
that's a very good point because depending on who you talk to, you can easily be convinced that investing in the stock market, investing in securities is gambling because of how they talk about it. If you're talking to someone who does penny stocks and they're just watching charts and graphs all day, they bought in the morning and they're going to sell in the afternoon, you're probably thinking to yourself, I don't have time to do that. And even if I did, I don't know what I'm looking at. So how the heck am I going to be able to take advantage of this stuff? And at the end of the day, nobody knows what a specific stock is going to do from one moment to the next. So, quite frankly, it is gambling. And
yeah,
so, there's a right way and a wrong way to invest in the stock market. I think you're doing it the right way with the understanding that you invest with realistic expectations of return, right?
definitely.
And that's what the S&P 500 dollar cost averaging scheme, which is what you're doing, no doubt, is all about. That's cool. Are you doing that through a personal brokerage, or are you doing that in a retirement vehicle like your 401k or an IRA? Are you doing a little bit of both?
Well, I'm doing that strictly through like Robinhood, just like a personal trading account. The pension was the biggest factor in me actually getting a government job,
Gotcha.
and the stability that hopefully it'll give me in the future.
All right, that makes sense. So, next question. It's one of my favorite questions. What has been the most traumatic experience that you have had with money?
Luckily, I've had a pretty sheltered life, so there weren't many traumatic experiences in terms of like hitting rock bottom or things like that. But also living comfortably also means you take more risks.
Mhm.
And I have a vein for gambling.
Mm.
So the most traumatic experience for me is probably laying down $1,500 on the Sacramento Kings in summer league, watching the game go to double overtime. And Cassian, in double overtime in summer league, you know how they pick a winner?
Prayer?
No, one next shot in wins. I had $1,500 on the Kings, and they they do the tip off for double overtime. The Kings get the ball, and they get fouled, but it goes to video review, and they pull the foul back. They give the ball to the other team. They hit the bucket. Boom, game over. $1,500 gone,
Here
bro.
I was thinking you were going to say paying me for all those Super Bowls that you lost.
Oh, nah, man. Hey,
Moving on.
all right.
We're going to get into some data and some statistics here. So, according to salary.com, the average salary for a civil engineer is somewhere around $72,000 a year nationwide, and the average in San Bernardino, California is around $77,000 a year. The average student loan debt is about $24,000, according to educationdata.org. We've linked the sources to both of these things in the description of this episode. Do these numbers resonate with you at all? Did you know stats like this as you were coming out of college looking for employment, whether you were going to go to work for the state, private sector, all that good stuff?
Honestly, going after a government job, you get to skip a lot of that, to be honest, to be frank,
Yeah.
because in a government job, you're level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of a position, and like socialism, everybody gets the same pay. The only difference is number of years worked or certifications that you earn while you're working, right?
Right.
So when I started at Irvine going through the civil program, my own father, he's a Caltrans civil engineer.
Mm.
So
You had the
I
inside scoop.
knew I knew what the ceiling of that is just from my childhood. He was able to give me a comfortable childhood, and moving me from Iran, working here as a civil engineer. And I thought to myself, hey, if I follow in his footsteps, I could do no wrong,
Mhm.
because I may be able to provide for maybe my future kids if that ever happens, the same way my father was able to provide for me. So going towards a government job, you see, okay, if I get hired as a civil, the first year, this is what I'm making. And I believe when I started, my salary was about 80 to 85 for the first year.
Mhm.
And some people listening to this may be like, yo, why are you saying this? If you didn't know, you can look up any government worker and their salaries on the internet. So
Yeah.
anything I'm saying, it's public info.
Yeah.
So it's not like that whole cutthroat private corporation stigma where it's like you don't tell the cubicle next to you how much you're making,
Yeah, because the
because
pay differential could be significant, and you do the
yeah, the guy next to you could be making 50K more doing 50% less.
Yep.
So, but in the state, everyone knows what everyone's making because it's a ladder. We all just take steps every year going up.
Right.
So yeah, the first year I think I made about 80, 85, which is very low, because after your first year, you get bumped 2 ladder raises up. So then from 85, I went to 95. And then from 95, today's my 5th year anniversary. Every year you work for the state, they give you 5% till you hit a cap. So I believe my gross annual salary right now is about 110, 115 in that area.
So, did you have any student loans coming out that the state paid for? Or were there programs through California that allowed you to go to school debt free?
So, a- another thing that was different about my upbringing was I had roots in Iran and Iraq, and with that roots, there came inheritance.
Mm,
And with that inheritance came a false sense of security, I would say, right? Because you would think, okay, yo, my grandma has a crib out in Tehran, like that crib's worth $1 million. She's got 3 kids, that's 300K to each family, like I'm chilling, that money's gonna be great. But once that money gets to you, it gets spent so fast that nothing remains.
mm,
You spend it on your loans, you spend it on the house, you spend it on this, you spend it on that. You take a family trip to Hawaii, boom. Where's your inheritance now,
yeah,
So that idea of an inheritance is worth more than the actual inheritance is.
yeah.
So so I believe that's also why I never really looked into investment, because I never needed to grind. And
Mm.
yeah, so when I got out of college, I had accrued about $31,000 worth of student loans, and that was over a 5 year stint at UCI. Again, not saving money, going out, spending money, all that stuff. So that 31,000, luckily, my parents covered with the inheritance of a property that they sold in the Middle East.
Oh, nice. Do you keep dreaming about when you'll be able to pursue your passions? It can be challenging to turn that dream into reality while providing quality care to your patients, addressing your student loans, and living a comfortable life. I'm Cassian Nunez, the CEO of Rhino Invest, and I'm here to share a better way, the Rhino way, which will make you financially independent sooner so that you can start to do more of what you are actually passionate about. Just to be clear, financial independence is achieved when your passive income exceeds your expenses, freeing you to pursue your passions, be it the ER job you love, helping your community through volunteer work, or becoming a world traveler. In other words, you are no longer trading your time for money to keep food on the table and pay your bills. So, what is the Rhino Way? It is the roadmap to achieving financial independence using the 4 guideposts of real education, investments in performing assets, no bad debt, and oversight of those assets. Our Rhino account provides products and services as a pathway to achieving your goals at a pace you set and in an environment with other like-minded people, all focused on lighting a fire in their financial plan. Becoming a Rhino will increase your financial IQ by making you familiar with the concept of risk and return, the different asset classes available for investment, and how you can take advantage of those options immediately. You'll have access to curated courses, online calculators, wealth guides, checklists, and your own net worth tracker. All this and more with your Rhino account. So I invite you to take the first step towards realizing your goals by opening an account today. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to working with you. If you didn't have some assistance from your family to pay for those student loans, does the state of California have any type of student loan repayment for folks that join public service or?
So I don't know for a fact,
Mhm.
because I know on the federal level there is, right?
Right.
But on the state level, I believe that there is a program, but it's not as robust as it is on the federal level.
Okay.
Because I've heard of people uh, at work who are much older than me saying, "Hey, the state helped me with my college tuition, but it wasn't to the degree of them covering it like fully or something like that. It was like a
Gotcha.
little assistance."
And also, getting back to the first part of the question on how much information you had before you decided to work for the state versus going private
Mm.
sector, for you, it was all about security more than salary. Because, like you said, you knew your upbringing and your father was able to provide that for you based on that job that he had. So you decided to get the same thing. That makes a lot of sense to me. It kind of reminds me of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. Have you read this book?
I haven't read it, but I've heard about it.
Yeah, very, very good parallels. I'd encourage you to read that. Pick that up. It's a quick read.
Definitely.
It's like 200 something pages. Yeah. All right. So next question. What do you most and least look forward to about your job?
What I look forward to most is when we complete a project, when we can pick up the last cone and just get out of everybody's way. That's one of the best feelings because with civil engineering, everything's macro in a sense, where um, if you go into mechanical or aerospace, you're working on a small part, something you could do on a table, I guess. But
Mhm.
civil engineering, you're building a road that you will use yourself, your friends will use, your family will use. So picking up that last cone, making sure that you've like upgraded a facility, and then driving through it with a homie and being like, "Yo, bro, I did that," you know?
Yeah.
Like you see that retaining wall or you see that off ramp right there. I repaved that shit for you, bro. Like like Venmo me five real quick. You know, I'm doing you a service.
Right.
So I guess yeah, for me it was just like the best feeling is being able to experience the product that I deliver at work with the people around me. So that's the best part about civil engineering. What I don't look forward to is I hate to say this on camera, bro, but it's the aging workforce at the state.
Mm,
It's just that pushback you get, that ineptitude in technology. I don't know if you see it on the federal level, but when someone's a lifer, they start not caring about what they want to do, you know? They're just there
yeah.
for the timesheet, basically. So for me, it's just that age group just slowing things down. That's it.
I wonder, being in the government on the federal level, in the military, how much different it would be if I was a finance person in the private sector working at
Mhm.
Merrill Lynch or JP Morgan, where there's probably equal amounts of bureaucracy. It's just a matter of how you're able to maneuver through it. In the
Mhm.
government, we have steps, we have ladders. You have to put your
Yeah.
time in and then you
One
get to
rung
the
in.
next step, one rung at a time.
Yeah.
The assumption that I'm making based on, some of our friends who went private and based on television shows that we watch is that competence and it's more merit based and you could be significantly younger, but you have a better idea, you have more work ethic and you can jump
Yes.
higher quicker. Um, and some of the folks that just can't hack it anymore are forced out. And I think a part of me wants to believe that it would be better working in an environment like that because I mean, who wouldn't want to be compensated based on the
Their
output?
skill.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you're really good at what you do. Yeah, please pay me more for that. But yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth. I go back and forth because there is something to be said about getting 30 days a year paid and having that stability and
Hmm.
consistency in your schedule, like all of that stuff. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure about you, but there were times where like I would go on a month-long vacation,
mhm.
come back, and the project is exactly where it was when I left. Again, you can make whatever you want out of any situation, but you could also say that the whole idea of like 40% of the public employees doing 100% of the work,
Mhm.
that whole idea could make you a better person because you're granted more opportunities to do different things
Mm.
and learn from your mistakes because we all make mistakes, right? But you can't make that mistake if you're not on the court playing. So the best part about government work is a rookie could be playing in a championship game kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like there is no kind of ego where they're like, okay, this guy's been here for so long, let's get him in. He's our face. There's no face guy when it comes to government work
Yeah.
because we're all the face guys. We all represent the state or on the federal level.
The public sector really does have a lot of good benefits that maybe aren't expressed in the way that you just expressed it in giving you an opportunity to experience a bunch of different things at a much younger age. So,
Definitely. And just to add one last thing, for anybody out there who wants to be swayed into public versus private, because I'm always trying to push people to come public. Like, don't get me wrong, but the idea that there's no one person in your office building that signs your check, that check for us comes from Sacramento, from our state controller. There's no one in that building that can come down and speak down on you because, hey, I sign your check, do this for me, do that for me. And it's all about like equality and just following that bureaucratic level and going through the right channels. That's it.
It's understanding where you want to be and when you want to be there. And the primary purpose of this show is talking about the personal financial aspects of a profession. And so there is a lot of upside to knowing how much money you're going to be making starting and how much money you're going to be getting every single year. That's great for planning purposes. You may or may not be making what your private sector counterparts make. In some instances, I don't know if this is the case in civil engineering, you may be making more initially, and then they eventually catch up if they're really, really good. But yeah, so it's definitely food for thought for folks thinking about entering college with the major of civil engineering and then eventually matriculating into.
Definitely. And I appreciate you doing the show, because most of the friends I talked to from my civil program in college didn't go to the public sector because they didn't even know about it.
Gotcha.
They didn't know that there's a Cal HR website or a USA Jobs website,
Yep.
So just that exposure gives a lot of people options. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Next question. What are some of the employee benefits enjoyed by people in your industry?
So I got to start off by saying that we are unionized. Most, I guess all labor in the state is all unionized. So our union negotiates all our benefits. We have something called a memorandum of understanding. It's renewed every 2-3 years with the governor and the legislature. So for the number of years I've worked, I make 14 hours of vacation every month. Healthcare wise, I had a list of like 20 different options of healthcare providers I could choose from PPO to HMO, because it covers the whole state. So I have a PPO health insurance with Cigna, and I pay nothing out of pocket. The state's contribution covers my healthcare plan for a single person. We're given vision, we're given dental. Another great thing is for your professional development, they give you 2 days off a year, the state, and they also provide you with stipends if you would want to continue your education in terms of getting your professional license.
Okay.
Because in civil engineering, to stamp a plan, you need to have a professional license. So things like that just keep it flexible, and you could make it what you want it to be. You can maximize profit through your salary, minimize time off. You can maximize time off, reduce your salary a little bit. Unfortunately, the state does not do any matching on any 401ks or Roths or anything like that. What's unique for a state worker with a pension is the whole idea of a 401k. As like what I understand it to be is you put pre-tax money away today and then you pull it out once you're retired, but you get taxed on it. But as a state or a government worker, once you retire, your income isn't going to be zero because you're getting your pension. So the 401k really doesn't make sense for me, because my salary when I retire is going to be more than it is today. So personally, I would rather pay the tax on that money today and put it aside in a Roth, rather than put my salary away today and then take it out when I get my pension and pay more taxes on it.
Well, I mean, you could have a pre and post tax retirement set up by the state. I think that is the case in most situations. I do agree with you. You definitely want to pay taxes today while you are in a lower tax bracket, the tax bracket that you will be in when you're a little bit older and closer to taking contributions. We're all about the Roth here. So yeah, I think the biggest difference is the amount that you can contribute. An IRA is capped at $6,000 in this tax year. It'll be $7,000 in 2023 versus that 401k, which is $20,500, right? That's massive. My next question, what are some of the barriers to entry for becoming a civil engineer?
So the barrier of entry for civil engineering is probably the least for any professional STEM major, I would say, because all you need is a 4-year degree. It's just that once you graduate with a civil engineering degree, then there are 2 steps you have to take to differentiate yourself.
Okay.
One is called an EIT exam. It's called the Engineer in Training exam. And every state has one. And you don't have to major in civil engineering to take it. You can do a STEM major and then pivot to civil engineering after you graduate just by taking the EIT exam. So there's always a door open to get into civil engineering. There aren't that many hurdles to jump over and get through. And once you say you go the traditional method, you go 4-year university, you get your civil degree, then with that information, you can easily get your engineering and training certificate. And with those 2, your resume looks great to be an entry-level civil engineer. And then once you work 2 years, then you're eligible to take your professional engineering exam. And that professional engineering exam consists of an 8-hour test that goes through, again, your last 2 years of your college education, basically just a little more in-depth questions than what you answered on your previous EIT exam. So once you do that 8-hour exam, in 49 states of the country, you're a registered civil engineer, except for the state of California. State of California,
Love it.
as we know, has a little bit more
Yep.
to it. So state of California then requires you to take a surveying exam, and rightfully so, a seismic exam. So again, like let's say a city like North Dakota, minus the fracking, they'll never have any earthquakes.
Mhm.
So there's no reason for their civil engineers to take a seismic course, you know? So in California, they determined, okay, we want all our civil engineers to be proficient in seismic because, hey, half our cities are sitting on a fault. Once you get your degree, you get your EIT and you get your PE, you automatically jump to the last rung of the ladder with the state. Doesn't matter if you've worked for 1 year, doesn't matter if you've worked there for 10 years. They say, show up to Caltrans, to the state Department of Transportation, have your professional engineering license. We'll pay you like you've been here 15 years. So a lot of people now in college, the new batches of people that are being hired into Caltrans, first thing they do, go get that PE certificate.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. That jump is insane from starting out from an 80,000, 85,000 a year. Now you're making 135, 140 just because you passed 3 tests.
Drops proverbial mic right there. That's
Yes, sir.
massive. Is there no real benefit to getting your master's degree? It's much more beneficial to just get these tests knocked out.
Yeah. So a lot of times you don't really hear of civil engineers going into a civil master's degree. I would say about 90% of my friends in the civil program at Irvine that did go on to a master's program did it in business, not in engineering. Because to be honest, like how many different ways are we going to pour concrete for a lane, you know?
Yeah.
What kind of studies are people doing in a master's program in civil engineering? Maybe they are in the environmental sector, you know, how to clean water, how to do less pollutants, things like that. But at the core of the physics behind civil engineering, it's already been figured out. So people go that business route.
Getting back to some follow-up questions that I had at the beginning of the segment, at the beginning of this episode, you had mentioned it and you just mentioned it again, that environmental is popular.
Very.
How do you get to classify yourself as being in that environmental track?
You would meet with a counselor midway in your second year, sophomore year, and the counselor says, okay, you have 4 paths you can take. You can either go the general route, you can go transportation, you can go structural, or you can go environmental. Those are the 4 paths you can take, and each path has a subset of prerequisites and courses that you have to pass to move on through that program. So civil engineering, like a lot of engineering programs, was predominantly male at the time where I was in my university. Like a split in my mind would be about 85-15 male to female ratio. But that 15% that was emerging of the female ratio, I would say most of them were all going towards the environmental route. So it provides an area of diversity within the civil field. And going through the environmental route, you have more like bio and chem classes than you do physics classes, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So your upper div, you might be taking an upper div class with a bio major because you're going through chemical reactions on how to clean sewage water and then have a lab for that. Whereas someone who did transpo like myself has no need to take that bio class. So I would be more in a physics class studying curvature of concrete on freeways and things like that. Once you graduate, and for the case of Caltrans, they don't care what path you took in college. I could go in and apply as an environmental engineer today, and just because I did transportation wouldn't set me back from an environmental role.
That is really, really good to know for all the people who are close to getting their civil engineer's bachelor's degree and they haven't decided which track yet, because I'm going to assume the private sector may not be operating on the same set of rules. If you don't
Correct.
have that extra class, if they can't verify on your transcript that you took that bio class, you're probably going to be behind someone who has taken that class if you decide to go environmental. Versus just going Caltrans, then you'll be able to get that experience and that exposure, making you more competitive if you decide to go private later.
Definitely.
That's nice.
So that's what a lot of people end up doing is they do start off at Caltrans, they get that information, and they understand how the system revolves around itself, how the plans become a construction site, and then how the monitoring happens. And then that really gives value to that engineer, because all these private companies, what are they doing? They're contracting with the state, right? So they want somebody who knows the forms to use. They want somebody to know how that ball revolves so they can manage the project better. So a lot of times public work is a stepping stone for a lot of people into the private sector.
That makes sense. What are your 1 year, 5 year, 10-year goals with money?
Okay, so my 1 year goal is to save $30,000. That's my 1 year goal. And with that leading me to my 5 year goal, in 5 years, I hope to own a house. And in 10 years, I hope to own multiple properties where I can be making residual income from them.
Oh, nice. Is that Ricky's influence, or is that just
No, I would call that the Cassian Nunez influence.
Hey, that was not planted.
No, not at all. Not at all. I know you've been killing it out in Atlanta, and that was actually one of the things I was thinking about. I was like, yeah, damn, Cassian's doing it right. And you got to respect and emulate sometimes.
Listen, Club Rhino Plus, by joining Club Rhino Plus, it will increase your financial literacy and IQ. We have 4 courses. They're all self-paced. One of the courses is real estate investing. It's how I do it. It focuses in on investing in single family residences as opposed to commercial, retail, or industrial. It's a course that has a bunch of applicable information. So you can take it. It's not theoretical. You can hit the ground running with the information. So I really put the course together with folks who are busy professionals in mind, because I don't do real estate investing full time. I still have a full-time job in the military, and I do this in addition to that. So for the folks listening right now, you can be in college. You still need to have the financial literacy to know what options are going to be available to you once you do have that Caltrans money, or once you do have that private sector money as a civil engineer. I appreciate you saying that.
No, man, whoever's listening out there, I'm going to tell you this. It ain't the Gucci slippers. It ain't the Prada bag. It's when Cassian calls you and tells you he got his second crib. That's the biggest flex out there. Put down those goods and get some property.
So we have finished the Q&A portion, and now we're going to move into my favorite segment, So You Think You're Smarter Than a Rhino.
Oh, no.
So we're going to be asking 6 questions, 5 of which are personal finance questions. All right, so the first question, what are the 4 subcategories of the real estate asset class?
I didn't even know those words made a sentence. I don't know what that means.
So there are 4 asset classes. There's real estate, there's commodities, there's securities, and there's business. And
Okay.
in one of those asset classes, there are subcategories. So when you're looking at real estate, what are the 4 subcategories?
So commercial, then you have what, personal, like homes, land management, loans.
All right. So that is not correct.
Ah,
But
shucks.
commercial, personal homes, also known as residential, those are right. Then you've got industrial,
Industrial. Okay.
and then you've got retail. But I'll give you half credit though, because you got 2
I
of the 4.
appreciate you. Half a point. I'll take it.
Define dollar cost averaging.
It would be how much you would spend on average in the lifestyle you're living per day, kind of thing.
All right. So textbook answer is it is a systematic approach to investing equal amounts of money at regular intervals, regardless of price, into a security. So the best example I could give is you decide every single month you're going to invest $500 into the S&P 500. As an index, it has shares. There's a share price.
Mm-hmm.
The first month is $50. The second month, each share is worth $60. The third month, each share is worth $40. You are still investing $500 every month, regardless of what that share price looks like. So the same amount of money at regular intervals, regardless of the price of the security that you're purchasing.
Damn.
This is the best strategy. It's the strategy that we advocate because money is not math alone. It's a lot of behavioral science to it. There's a lot of stuff that you got to know about how humans work in order to make your money work. And creating that behavior of constantly assigning dollars to investing is actually more important and more contributory to the overall success of your portfolio. So that dollar cost averaging is just getting you used to every month I'm putting $500 aside into my investment, regardless of the price. You're not concerned about making sure you get the best price. It's just the behavior.
You don't even check the cost. You got it on a automatic app. It just does it for you, kind of thing.
Correct.
So that whole idea of that whole S&P we were talking about is dollar cost averaging, right?
Yeah. How you're doing it, you're probably dollar cost averaging.
Damn, I'm doing something I didn't even know it.
There you go.
There we go.
All right. Question number 3. What does the acronym SMART stand for?
Is this intended for an 18+ audience? No. S, I would guess, would be securities. M would be markets. AR, annual revenue. And T, let's go with technology. I don't feel good about the T, but yeah, final answer.
All right. That is not correct. I do like where your mind is at, though. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. And at Rhino Invest, we're all about making sure that rhinos are setting smart financial goals. It's one thing to say, I'm going to go on vacation. It's another thing to say, I'm going to go on a $15,000 vacation in 2 years with the understanding that you make $120,000 a year. That makes it realistic and achievable. It's time bound because you said 2 years. It's specific because you said $15,000, right? You want to assign all of those characteristics to whatever your financial goal is. And that just increases the likelihood of actually achieving it. So specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. Those are, that's what SMART stands for. And we are all about creating smart financial goals.
I love that. I love that.
All right, number 4. What are the 2 schools of thought in personal finance?
Is it the one school of thought is make money for retirement, and one school of thought is how do I make money today?
So the 2 schools of thought, you've got Dave Ramsey on one side, you've got Robert Kiyosaki on the other side.
Okay.
Dave Ramsey is all about getting out of debt as quickly as possible and then starting to invest for your future in such a way that you're not taking any undue risk. So you're
Okay.
not purchasing rental properties with mortgages, you're buying them cash. You're even paying for your primary residence as quickly as possible to zero, right?
Mm.
And then you're going to start contributing to your retirement account.
Oh,
So
I
then you've
got you.
got the Robert Kiyosaki side, and he's all about good debt versus bad debt. So good debt is debt that is used to make you money. If you are using debt to purchase a performing asset and that performing asset is producing enough income to pay the debt and pay you, you want to take that debt out every time. Bad debt is used to purchase consumer goods, liabilities, things that you are using personally, and there's no money that's going to be derived from any of those activities. Ski-doos, big houses that you live in, fancy cars, etc. Bad debt is what he tells people to stay away from. So those are the 2 schools of thought. You can use debt in a way that makes you money and grows your net worth. You just have to be really responsible. Or you could just always avoid debt. We tell people Robert Kiyosaki. We
Yeah, I
also have
got
a YouTube video, Good Debt versus Bad Debt, explaining what I just
you.
explained. All right. Question number 5. What is the equation for achieving financial independence?
Let's see. Let me think about my variables. One, I would say passive income.
Mhm.
2 would be no debt or minimal debt. 3 would be making sure you paid all your taxes. And that added together, divided by living within your means.
So I think I'm going to give you half credit.
Let's go.
I think I'm going to give you half credit.
Thank you.
So it's passive income exceeding expenses equals financially independent.
Okay.
You are considered to be financially independent because you are no longer trading your time for money.
There it is.
That's the definition of being
Full stop. That I got to get that tatted on me, bro.
That's a conversation that I would love to be able to start when somebody looked at my tab and was like, hey, what does that mean? Oh, I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. My favorite question. What does Rhino stand for? We are a wealth management firm.
Let me think. So Rhino, responsible investment. No, knowledge starts with a K, but I'm gonna just say knowledge, even though it starts with a K. Responsible investment knowledge out here. That's what I think it stands for.
I'm spelling things wrong. All right.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Rick No, but you forgot the K.
All right.
What does Rhino stand for?
So that is not correct.
Mm-hmm.
It stands for real education, investments in performing assets, no bad debt,
Nobody.
and then oversight of those assets. So real education is critical, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are so many TikToks out there talking about 5 steps to make $1 million tomorrow.
Facts.
So we provide real education, applicable education in layman's terms for people who are busy professionals. If you have your bachelor's of science in nursing, if you are a civil engineer, if you are an attorney, if you're in law enforcement, if you're a teacher, if you're out there as a professional doing what it is that you love to do, you don't have time to become a financial planner. You don't have time to go get your MBA or your CFP or whatever would have you. So we've created courses, 4 hours of self-paced content where people can take it at their own leisure and then input their numbers and the course will actually spit out the plan, some blueprint. It's not very detailed, but a rough blueprint of how long it's going to take them to achieve financial independence, and the different things that they need to do. So we always are encouraging people to open a Club Rhino Plus account for that reason, because it's real education in there.
Definitely.
So that's what Rhino stands for: real education, investments in performing assets, no bad debt, and then oversight of those assets. We thank you for playing. We really appreciate it. We also thank you for taking the time to share a little bit about yourself and potentially help some folks that are thinking about becoming civil engineers think about their personal finances as soon as possible, because it's never too early. If you're in high school listening to this and you're thinking about going to college to be a civil engineer, start thinking about what your finances look like, right? And setting those expectations so that you can knock down your goals. Was there anything else you wanted to add before we wrapped up here?
If the viewers use promo code AliB, will they get 5% off?
No.
Bro, I've always wanted to be sponsored, bro. Can you give me that?
I'll think about it.
Okay, that's all I asked. But besides that, I appreciate you, Cassian. Thanks for teaching me about a lot of things that I didn't know, you know? So if you're out there, if this video just came on randomly, you just hit next, or anything happened and you hear this, just know that it's never too late to invest. And again, time is money, and either or, you're benefiting. So
awesome. Thanks, man. Until next time.
Till next time, my guy. Catch you later.